Hello, welcome to the Finding Proof live show this week. One day late because, of course, I am in a hotel room on the Gold Coast in Queensland. I'm here for some intensive work over the weekend with my business mentor and some wonderful professional colleagues of mine. This is the last working retreat for this program that I've been involved in during the course of this year, and I have to say it's been an amazing experience for me. If you feel that in your business you could benefit from the input of a mentoring program, then I really encourage you, whatever profession you're in, to find yourself a mentor. I know you've heard me say this many times before, but it is such a great experience to find a mentor in your particular field and to really do a deep dive into what you can learn about advancing yourself within your profession and beyond. Who knows what else you'll get out of it. So a very dear friend of mine is embarking, he's a musician, David Fuller. He's embarking on an incredible experience similar to mine, and I'm very excited for him to be doing that as a creative. So whatever it is that you are working in and whatever area is your area of expertise, there's always more to learn. That's something that I really have embraced. There's always more to learn and more to be done in your field. So do find yourself a mentor in your profession and go for it hard. So today I want to talk about charging your worth. So talking about the various professions, this is a topic that I have spoken to my mentoring clients about ad nauseum, they would probably say, and I have just recently been running a program for mental health professionals all about Medicare, which is in Australia. It's a bit different to what Americans might understand Medicare to mean, but in Australia we have a blanket government-funded program that supports our community in the cost of medical treatment. And in Australia, about 10 years ago, psychological services were added to that system. So I have been running some training for mental health professionals to understand that system a bit better and to feel more confident in the work they're doing within that system. And it has come up, I guess, as part of that group, that training, that there's a lot of fear. People have a lot of fear about getting into trouble, doing things wrong. But underneath that, there's also a lot of fear about stepping into the power that comes with charging what you're worth. So I'm going to... Oh, hello, Jen, Chris, Naomi. I can see you've all jumped on board. Great to have you here this morning. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I've learned from other professionals about just accepting your worth, stepping into the strength of that, and then going for gold, as it were, in terms of the courage and the conviction to own your value and to step right into that and set the fees for the services that you provide accordingly. So I'm just going to very quickly, I've decided to share this into my Medicare group because that is something that I have told them that I would like to offer them. So let's see if we can find them. Bear with me one moment. So one of the things that I am really aware of is that so let's use the mental health example under Medicare. And so a lot of professionals worry about clients who can't afford their service. Now that's a really generous place to be coming from. So in mental health, the mental health profession, we're a helping profession. We really want to help people. That's why we've trained so hard to do what we do. And yet we set ourselves up as business owners sometimes to undercharge for our services because we're so worried about the people who can't afford our services. The thing that I find feeds into that fear and feeds into that worry is a belief that, well, if somebody can't afford my service, then they're not going to get any service at all. So it's a very blinkered view of what else is available in the community and what resilience and tenacity and ingenuity our clients have to find ways to afford the things they need and want in their lives. So the example I wanted to share today, and I've shared this with my mentoring clients in the past, is the example of commercial or creative entrepreneurs. So artists who have a growing business selling their works through art galleries and making a sustainable living off that. Now, I do have a passion for Tasmanian art, so you may be aware I'm Australian, but I'm from Tasmania, which is a state of Australia, but it's a little heart-shaped island at the bottom of Australia, famous for Tasmanian devils, of course. And we have some fantastic artists living on my little island at the bottom of the world, and I have a real joy in collecting artworks from Tasmanian artists, and I have a number of artists in my stable, if you like, now. And there was one particular artist that I had been striving to purchase one of his artworks. His name is Richard Wastell, Wastell. You should look him up, he's fabulous. But every time he had an exhibition, I was either in a situation where I couldn't afford, so as a student, I couldn't afford to buy his works, or I was too late. They would sell like hotcakes and they would be gone, and I would be kicking myself for not being more organised. So I got a heads up from a local art gallery who represents Richard, and they have a mailing list, an email mailing list, letting me know that he had two new works coming, so not a formal exhibition, just two new works coming into the gallery. And at the time I was deathly sick with the flu. So I sent a message to the gallery owner asking him if he would mind putting an artwork aside for me, because I was unwell, I couldn't get in quickly, but I was 100% committed to getting in there. And he very kindly held it and held it and held it and held it while I had this flu that seemed to go on forever. Now, when I went in there and fell in love, of course, as I knew I would, with the painting, the usual way that I buy artworks and make it affordable and sustainable for me is through an art collection scheme that the Tasmanian government supports, which is like it's basically an interest-free loan. So you pay the painting off over 12 months, and the government runs that loan for you. It's not a bank-run thing, and you take the painting home and you just pay for it over 12 months, and it's all good. What I learnt, and I'm getting to a point, what I learnt when I went to buy this painting by Richard was that there is a cap on how much any one artwork, or is it any one loan? I think it's any one artwork can be valued at, and it is $8,000. And the painting I wanted to buy was more than $8,000. So that meant that my purchase of that artwork was not going to be eligible under the Collect Art purchasing scheme. Now, that's okay. The art gallery was brilliant, and we arranged our own little lay-by scheme where I would pay it off in exactly the same way I would have if it was through the loan scheme. That's not the point of the story, so the painting will come to me eventually. The point of the story, and it really, really struck me, at the time I'd been having a number of conversations with mental health professionals who were stuck doing what we call bulk billing, which is where you, instead of paying your client a fee, so the full fee of the session, so under Medicare, our clients will pay a fee and then they get a rebate. They get a portion of that fee back from the government. Now, if you bulk bill, the amount that the client gets back, instead of charging the client any money, you just send that claim off to the government yourself, and the government pays you that amount of money, but you're not allowed to charge the client any more than that. You're accepting that smaller amount as your fee. Now, a lot of mental health professionals get stuck in the cycle of bulk billing when they start out their private practices, and they're only, they might be a single practitioner operating out of some low-cost rooms somewhere, and they don't have a lot of overheads, and it's not so unaffordable for them to run their business doing that. But as their business grows, and when you get a business the size of mine, with, depending on the month, with people coming and going in my team, we have 20 people working in my practice. So not only are there salaries to pay, there's the rent to accommodate all those people, there's the administrative staff, there's all of the other things that come with running a business that size. So we don't bulk bill because it's just not affordable to run my business that way. I had to do a lot of work on myself to make that change in my business. So I know what it's like when mental health professionals feel really stuck in that bulk billing cycle. So I have often had conversations in my mentoring programs with mental health professionals where they're stuck bulk billing and struggling with cash flow, struggling to pay themselves salary because all their money goes towards running their business. So what I noticed when I purchased this particular painting, I looked around, there was another exhibition on at that time, and I looked around at all the artworks. Not one of them was valued at $8,000 or less. So what that told me was that the artists in that gallery were not pricing their paintings according to what the Collect Art Scheme said was the maximum for a loan for purchasers to buy the artworks. They were pricing their artworks according to their value. Now, this is such an important message because, of course, we have stereotyped ideas of artists as being struggling and poverty-stricken and eating potatoes and bread and cheap, nasty wine. We have these stereotypes of the poor, struggling artist, and yet they are not cheapening themselves by bringing their prices down to accommodate what some art scheme says is their maximum fee that they will lend money for. So in the mental health profession, in many, many other professions, we've got to stop and look at what does it cost me to run my business? What does it cost me to run my business and pay myself a salary or some kind of income? How many clients can I see in a day? What does somebody working in the government sector get paid for doing what I do? You can backward engineer from there. You can say, as a private business owner, you can backward engineer saying, okay, I want to get $100,000 a year and I only want to work 4 days a week. If I backward engineer from there, how many clients can I fit in a 4-day week? 20, maybe? So you go 100 grand divided by however many weeks a year you work. You might have small children, so you might be off work during the school holidays. So you divide your $100,000 that you want by the number of weeks that you work and the number of clients you see, and that'll tell you what your fee should be. That's not even factoring in the running costs of your business. So you've got other professionals working in your business with you who are contributing to the revenue flow of your business, then that helps, but they also come at a cost because, of course, they need to be paid too. But that's a really brief sort of guide, I guess, of how you can backward engineer what your fee should be. Your governing body, so psychological governing bodies, or ours is the Australian Psychological Society, they have a fee schedule, a recommended fee schedule. And that fee schedule states that our recommended fee, now this fee is based on what it costs to run a business and pay yourself a salary. So the APS has done that hard work for us as psychologists. They say the recommended fee for a psychological session is $251. Now the rebate that many psychologists receive from the government, or their clients receive from the government, is $84.80. That's a long way from $251. So if we get stuck in what some other body says, well, that's the maximum amount they're prepared to pay, if we get stuck there, instead of thinking realistically about not only what does our business cost to run, but also what do I need to earn as a professional, and a reasonable earnings. You don't have to say I want to earn $1 million a year. Good on you if you can make that work, but you want to be comparing yourself to what do other professionals in my sector earn, and what's a reasonable comparison, in other words, to expect, and go from there. Now, many business owners in many professions get stuck with this kind of thing from fear that nobody will want my service, fear that I will be judged by my peers, fear. I want you to really be thinking about that. So I have copied this live show into my Medicare training group today as well, because I really have been talking to them. I was talking to them yesterday about fear, and I really want to drive home this message, and I want them to be thinking about charging their worth as well, because many people fear that they'll be judged harshly by their professional colleagues. Mental health professionals fear that if they don't bulk bill, they're going to be judged harshly by the doctors who refer clients to us. Now, let me tell you another story. My doctor, because of course I'm a human, I have a doctor too. My doctor, who very rarely refers to me, thanks very much. However, we were having a business chat. We were there for him to see one of my kids, and we ended up having a quick business chat, just how things go. I said something, he got asking me about bulk billing, because of course some doctors bulk bill in Australia as well. And he started asking me about bulk billing and how that worked in my practice. And I said, we don't do it. And he stared at me for a second, and I got a bit sweaty. And then he leaned in and he said, how did you do that? I thought he was going to tell me off. I really did. But he didn't. He was in awe of this idea that you didn't have to bulk bill. So I said to him, when I was ready to make that change in my business, we made sure that our current clients were looked after. There were lots of lead time, lots of information for our current clients, and we worked through that gently with our current clients, and many of them had enough time to finish up before we made the change in our business. And then we stated right from date X, all new patients referred into the practice would be told our fee, and anyone who was asking for bulk billing would be advised that we don't do that, but we would recommend other services, not necessarily other private practices, but other services in our community that offered a free service. So they went away with something. And I said to him, you could make the decision that from tomorrow, the next person who rings your practice isn't offered a bulk billing option. And it was like a switch had been flicked. And he said, I might have to get you to come in and talk to me and the other partners about this at some point. I was happy to do so. What we assume, when we assume that others are going to judge us harshly, we assume that they know our business circumstances. We assume that they know how we run our businesses. We assume that they know what else is going on for us in our businesses. And they don't, they can't. They're busy enough running their own businesses. So, for example, using doctors as another example, only recently discovered that doctors get an incentive payment to bulk bill in Australia, get an incentive payment to bulk bill children and concession card holders. Now, they might assume that we get the same incentive payment from the government to do the same thing, which is why, my theory is that's why we get so much pressure to bulk bill, because they don't understand that we don't also get that. You ask a doctor if they would be prepared to bulk bill an hour-long session, they're probably going to say no. So whatever industry you're in, start as you mean to finish. Find out what your fee should be. Now, ring around other businesses. Now, a lot of businesses get uncomfortable talking about their fees with what they might term competitors. I'm very open about our fee structure because I believe that we aren't competitors, we're colleagues, professional colleagues, and our service should never be based on financial competitiveness when we're offering a true service to our community, because if it's good enough, people will pay what they need to pay, just like I found a way to pay for that painting by talking with the gallery owner and coming up with a plan. Now, you might be a creative, you might be a writer, you might be a retailer, you might be another psychologist. That fear of being too expensive drives a lot of businesses to the ground, because we act in reaction to that fear of being judged by our peers, fear that no one will want or value our service the way we feel inclined to, and so we have to undercharge. When's the last time you saw an art gallery have a sale? I've never seen an art gallery have a sale. Certainly they'll have auctions from time to time. That's a different thing, I suppose, because there's a chance that the painting would be sold for more than it was originally listed for. And of course, there's a risk it would go for less. But they charge what their artists are valued at, what their worth is. If you're a designer, you're doing something that's unique. You should be absolutely charging. Now, the best advice I ever got early in my business career, way ago, was from one of my early supervisors. So to become a psychologist, now I'm a clinical psychologist. To be able to use the title clinical psychologist, I had to jump through lots of hoops. So partly it was my training, but it was also beyond my training. It was supervised practice for a period of time from eligible supervisors. So one of my early supervisors, when I told her that I was going into private practice, her first response was to fix me with a steely gaze and say, "Don't you dare undercut me." Up until that point, and I'll be forever grateful to her for that, because up until that point, I was worrying about what to charge. I knew what she charged, and I was worrying about what to charge because I didn't feel I deserved to charge what she charged. Yes, she was pots more experienced than me. But what I didn't understand was that by undercharging, I was discrediting the profession, devaluing the service in the eyes of the community, and so on. There are all these other layers to what happens when you undercharge your service. So today, if you're up for some homework, here's what I'd like you to do. I would like you to go and find yourself a beautiful spot to sit. I've got one down, I'm in a beautiful hotel with a beautiful pool area, very lush, very tropical. There are even water dragons, which are a type of Australian lizard that they're about this long, that visit. And I'm going to be sitting down there today, and I'm going to be doing the work that I need to do today in a beautiful location. So I want you to find somewhere beautiful. It can be your front doorstep with a pool of sunlight if that's a beautiful spot for you. Get a great pen, a nice notebook, and do some journaling around what you are worth. Do some sums around what your service should be valued at, but also do some journaling around scarcity. So this fear of there never being enough. I remain in scarcity by choosing to undercharge for my services. When you start thinking about having a scarcity mindset and the trap that can be, it's a fear-based mindset, trapped in there's never enough, you will make business decisions based on fear, and that's not a long-term strategy. You need to be playing the long game in your business, which means you need to be pricing your service at a fee that is respectful of the value, of the worth of what you do. So do some journaling around why you choose to remain in scarcity. And it's a nasty little exercise. I'm sorry to give you this nasty exercise because it really will bring out some of those fears that you've got. I choose to remain in scarcity because I'm scared what others will say about me if I put my fees up. I choose to remain in scarcity because I'm terrified of having no more clients. So do a little bit of work on that, and then I want you to really look at all those fears and understand that most of them are just in here, that scarcity talking. I want you to be thinking about the value. Look around you. Look at others in your profession who charge what they are worth, and the sky still stands. They still have a successful business. They are paying their staff what their staff are worth. They are paying themselves what they are worth. And the sky still stands because they are charging for their services what their true worth is, not dictated by what some other body, some external body says is a fee. It's not a fee. If we're talking about Medicare, that's a fee. It's not a fee. I've set an alarm on my phone and it keeps going off in the background. It's not a fee for your service. It's a rebate for your client. So there's a bit of homework, a bit of yucky stuff. When you finish that scarcity, exercise in your journaling and keep going until you've really exhausted it, so that you absolutely know that you've uncovered all of those nasty little fears, then you might want to do something a bit more positive. If I chose to live in abundance, an abundance mindset is all about believing there are enough. There are enough people in this world who will pay what your service is worth. As long as you're providing a great service, there are enough people out there who will be prepared to pay for that. It's about finding your tribe. It's about getting your message out there. That's a conversation about marketing, which we can have another day. But if you're prepared to charge your worth, now think about this from an abundance mindset. If you truly believe that there are enough people out there, wouldn't that be wonderful to have your business full of clients who value you at your true worth? How's that going to feel instead of all that fear-based stuff? So do some extra journaling around, if I stepped into abundance, my business would look like, and then do, my business would look like, or my business would be more profitable, my business would be more stable, my business would be a joy to be in because I'm not so scared all the time. So these are a lot of ideas for you to be thinking about your business, whether it's a creative entrepreneurship, whether it's a retail business, whether it's a mental health professional business, whatever business you're in, thinking about charging your worth, honouring the work that you do, honouring the effort that you've put into it. And go for it. And all my good luck to you, because I know you can do this. That's it from me today. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you all again next week. Bye for now.